Chicago PD Season 13. Reid's murder might finally force a Voight arc that's been inevitable since Season 1. Chicago PD Season 13 could bring to light a Voight arc that has been part of the character's growth since Season 1. The series has received acclaim for its dark, gritty storytelling, complex, morally gray characters, and unflinching depiction of law enforcement. Throughout its run, Chicago PD, which recently wrapped Season 12, has been anchored by its flawed protagonist, Hank Voight, a man who has always trodden both sides of the law in his pursuit of justice and keeping his city safe. Voight is a very layered character and combines a tough, no-nonsense persona with a willingness to break the rules in order to solve cases and catch bad guys, though he's been trying to stay on the straight and narrow in recent years. Chicago PD Season 12 saw Voight pitted against Reid, one of his most dangerous adversaries. Voight ultimately fell back on his old ways and sanctioned the killing of Reid to protect himself and the IU. In doing so, it has opened up a potential future arc for Hank in Chicago PD Season 13 that feels as though it has been a long time in the making. While Voight taking Reid out of the equation was necessary for self-preservation, it also puts Hank in a tough spot. The questions surrounding the manner of Reid's death are not just going to go away, and nor is the IA investigation into intelligence. And Hank's own crew are bound to have questions, with Ruzick and Burgess both showing in the past that they are not afraid to challenge Voight on moral issues. There is likely to be a fallout from Reid's death that could fall back on the IU team, and Hank lacks the familial loyalty of classic Chicago PD characters like Olinsky, Antonio, and Aaron, who were often on the same page as Hank and could help him out of difficult situations like this. Chapman could also turn against Hank and Yu, and might prove to be a very dangerous adversary for Hank over the course of the season. Hank has always been prepared to do whatever it takes in the name of Chicago, and his unorthodox ways have seen him break the law and push morality for years in intelligence. Sanctioning Reid's death felt more like self-preservation than police justice, and it could set Hank on the path to evolving from anti-hero to villain. It has always felt like a small push is all it would take for Hank to cross over into becoming a truly irredeemable villain instead of a morally gray and often corrupt anti-hero. However, it feels unlikely that the show will venture down this road, because what makes Hank so compelling is the fact that he is technically a goodie, despite also being the dirty cop in many ways. There are many terrible things Voight has done in Chicago PD, but he is a necessary evil in the context of the show, so it feels likely he will stay in that role for at least the duration of Chicago PD Season 13. Given the nature of the intelligence unit and the role they play in protecting the city, it is understandable why Hank sometimes reverts to moral ambiguity or straight-up criminality. The problem is, this seems to be Voight's default setting. Even when he thinks he's going to change and steer clear of corruption, something happens, and Voight's first instinct is always to take the more questionable path. Even when he thinks he's going to change and steer clear of corruption, something happens, and Voight's first instinct is always to take the more questionable path. Hank is not afraid to break the rules and do things his way, and this season has shown that more than anything. The problem is that this can often land him in difficult situations. It's unlikely that Hank will fully embrace his dark side in Chicago PD, but Season 13 might see more of the old Hank resurfacing, with Voight having to break more and more rules to keep the wheels. In the closing minutes of the last episode of Chicago PD, struck a deep, raw chord in a department already battling its own demons. To say it was a shock would be an understatement. The moment we saw Reid's body slumped against that rooftop fence, his service pistol gone, a pool of blood spreading beneath him, we felt something more than the death of a cop. We felt a dramatic, narrative tectonics shifting in the background, a rumble we've been expecting for years. Reid's death might be the matchstick that ignites a story arc for Voight we all suspected was a long time coming. The death that shakes Voight to his core. Hank Voight, Jason Begg, has lived through a lot. The death of his son, the killing of Alvin Olinsky, the numerous suspects and comrades fallen under his watch. But the killing of Officer Reid feels different. It feels personal. There's a silence to Voight in the moments after the department finds the body. A silence that speaks volumes about the rage, regret, and blame swirling within him. It's a silence we first saw back in Season 1, when Voight crossed a moral Rubicon after losing someone close. The killing of Reid, a young, eager cop under Voight's wing, plays directly into Voight's greatest fear, failing to protect his people. How we got here, the arc that's always been inevitable. From the moment we met Voight, we knew we were dealing with a man battling his own soul. His methods were unconventional, his conscience a shifting sand beneath him. He crossed lines, made questionable choices, all in service of justice, or at least his view of it. His greatest vulnerability has always been those under his command. His team isn't just a collection of officers, it's his family, a surrogate for the family he tragically lost. So when something happens to a team member, a young, idealistic soul like Reid, it cuts through all the armor Voight has constructed. This arc has been inevitable because Voight's greatest downfall was destined to come from protecting the people he cared about most. His love for his team has always made him dangerous, to himself and to everyone else. The killing of Reid is the dramatic manifestation of this vulnerability. Turning point. Voight's arc begins here. For years, we've gotten hints about Voight's eventual showdown with himself. We've seen it in the death of Alvin, in the killing of his son, and in countless cases where justice seemed elusive. But now it's different. The killing of Officer Reid isn't just a tragedy, it's a crisis of conscience. For the first time in years, Voight finds himself doubting the methods that made him who he is. Did his choices put Reid in harm's way? Did his need to control everything undermine the department's ability to operate safely? His doubts will permeate his investigations, undermine his confidence, and force him to reconsider the kind of leader and man he wants to be. The arc that will define Voight's legacy. This isn't just a temporary hurdle, it's a defining moment for Voight's character. His legacy hangs in the balance. Will he revert back to the man we first met, a cop who played by his own rules, whatever the cost, or will he allow this tragedy to transform him? Picture a future episode where Voight finds himself alone in the department's rooftop, staring at the spot where Reid fell. His knuckles are white on the railing, his breath shaky, his mind battling regret and rage. It's a moment of raw vulnerability, a side of Voight we haven't often gotten to see. That rooftop, the literal scene of the killing, becomes a symbol for Voight's soul, a physical manifestation of the choices we've been wondering about for years. Ripple effects among the team. Reid's death will affect more than just Voight. It will send shockwaves through the entire team. Atwater, Burgess, Ruzick, and Upton will all wrestle with their own doubts and disappointments. Was there something they missed, a warning sign in Reid's behavior, or a piece of information that fell through the investigative net? This will raise questions about unity within the team. Trust might erode. Loyalties will be tested. There might be a dramatic showdown where Burgess confronts Voight, arguing that his decisions put their friend in danger. Atwater might withdraw, choosing silence over conflict. The team's future hangs in the balance, reflecting the chaos within their leader. The inner conflict that will drive Voight's arc forward. Internally, Voight finds himself battling two opposing desires. On the one hand, there's the temptation to revert back to his dark side. toe take justice into his own hands and destroy the suspects responsible for killing Reid. On the other, there's a growing understanding that this path has gotten him into trouble time and again.